Hey everybody, Theron Asbury here with Vital Outdoors, bringing you another exciting podcast this evening. Tonight we're going to the great state of Kentucky. We're going to interview Mr. Edward Gettys. He got a top 5 finish last year at the first LBL BFL tournament for Major League Fishing. He also won Angler of the Year in the LBL Division, so we're very excited to have him on tonight. Before we get started, if you haven't already, be sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. Also, check us out on social media. That's going to be Facebook and Instagram, Revital Outdoors. And then if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, we're a premium CBD company for the outdoor enthusiasts. So check out our website. That's going to be www.revitaloutdoors.com. You can see all of our premium CBD products there. You can purchase them online. And then also, if you're interested in a pro staff position, we are accepting pro staff daily. So fill out that pro staff application on the pro staff tab, and we'll be happy to review it. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get straight to this podcast. Very excited this evening to have Edward. Let's go ahead and bring him in. Coach Ed, for everybody else, how you doing this evening, bud?
Glad to be here.
Fantastic. So, well, man, let's just get right into it. You live around the Kentucky Lake area. You're a phenomenal angler there. I looked up your resume and your history from Kentucky Lake. You've done very, very well. So, talk to us about the tournament last year. I know that Kentucky Lake's kind of known for more of a ledge lake and fishing out deep. So, how did that transpire to the early spring when you did so well there last year?
Well, actually, I caught my fish pretty shallow last year. I believe I had big fish in that tournament. It was about 7 pounds. I caught it on a rattle trap, and it was about 3 foot deep. It was kind of in the river, in the current, but not necessarily current break. But I think I caught most of the fish throwing rattle baits last year, and my best finishes this time of year, that's what I've done.
Okay, so fishing up shallow, throwing lipless baits, that's awesome. Are you targeting the bluff walls, the riprap, the main lake points, secondary points, anything like that?
I was fishing mostly secondary bars, kind of little corners that hit the current. So it was somewhat of a current pattern, but not necessarily a true current break. Didn't get a lot of bites, but I did catch a couple of really good ones, including one over 7. So it was mainly a main lake deal. I didn't fish much in backwater.
Okay. You said you caught 7 fish throughout the day, and then
something like that. I said my biggest one. I'm pretty confident I had big fish that day. It was just over 7. Okay. And I remember catching it down toward Paris, and it was on a shallow bar with a little bit of current hitting it.
Okay.
A couple stumps.
I got you. So, well, it's really interesting to talk to someone that fishes Kentucky Lake religiously, and they're throwing a lipless bait, and they're not talking about throwing a big worm or a big swim bait or Alabama rig or something like that.
Well, that type of fishing has really declined on this lake. The last 3 or 4 years, it's even hard to catch them in the summer unless you're targeting something. The true ledge bite has kind of gone away with the carp. I think they're kind of hurting the shad population. And so the ledge fishing is, for me, and I used to be known for it, has really dropped off. And I fish big worms, but I might be throwing on a brush pile, or I might be throwing on a dock or a lay down. As far as the true ledges, it hasn't been nearly as good the last few years, even in summer.
Okay. Well, talk to us a little bit about Kentucky Lake and the carp issue. I know that's been a very known and talked about issue the last few years. Where is Kentucky Lake? I've heard, talking to a few anglers like Mark Menendez, Terry Bolton, that the lake is coming back and that they're controlling the carp population. So where is your opinion on that?
Well, I think there are less carp than there were several years ago. I know I do a lot of scanning, and when I'm scanning, I see carp, but I don't see them as thick as I did 4 years ago. Like if you go down a bay 4 or 5 years ago, they would be top to bottom, left and right, the length of the bay. Where now you see them in clusters, and there may be 50 or 100 of them, but then you may go a long stretch and not see hardly any. So I think there are less of them, but there's still quite a few. And I still think they're affecting the fishing, but I don't think that's the whole problem. I think they've affected the bait a lot. I don't see as many gizzard shad as I used to, and it may be that they're just locating in a different area. I don't know that they're comfortable out on the ledges with all those carp around.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, I remember in 2018 when Wesley Strader won the Bassmaster Elite Series there. It was a May tournament. And I remember several of the anglers fishing that event, Jason Christie in particular. I remember watching his Facebook. He did a live feed on Facebook, and he would literally go up into these bays. And as far as the eye could see, there was literally, it seemed like millions of carp just jumping out of the water, just flickering at the surface and all that. So, are you saying those days are pretty much done, that kind of population is not there anymore? And do you think they're continuing the efforts to reduce the population?
Well, I think they're still out there trying to harvest them. And I think they took quite a few of them out. I don't see as many of them jumping as I used to. But if you go out there in the summer, you can still see quite a few of them up on top, swimming around, especially on a calm day. So, and like I said, I scan them and I see them. But I just don't see them in as thick of bunches as I used to. I think they're thinned out quite a bit. And, the bass fishing overall, I think is somewhat better. I caught pretty good quality last year. I caught a lot of bass between 4 and 6 pounds. But you don't catch the numbers you did back like when the grass was in the lake.
Okay. Well, getting back on bass fishing a little bit, you talked about last year, you got the top 5 finish in the LBL division for the first tournament on Kentucky Lake. You were throwing a lipless bait. You said you were throwing it on secondary points, and they were kind of relating to the current. So obviously the current was a big player that day. Was there anything else that made those secondary points special? Maybe some different structure, chunk rock versus pea gravel? Was there brush on those bars, or that's just the bars you ran and you just happened to catch the fish that you did?
Well, I remember the ones I caught the fish on had a few isolated stumps, and the stumps were pretty shallow. In fact, occasionally you could see the top of one, but there weren't a bunch of them. There were just a few isolated ones. So it seemed like stumps were part of the pattern, but it wasn't one of these deals where you just go catch 30 or 40 fish. You had to work for them.
Okay. As far as other baits that you could have been successful with, you talked about throwing the lipless bait. For anglers that are, fishing this upcoming BFL, LBL Division event that kind of want to target the same thing you were doing, throwing, up shallow and all that, is there any other baits that you would have on the deck of the boat?
I always keep spinner baits this time of year, chatterbait, lipless baits. I usually have some kind of square bill and a jig, and a lot of times I'll have a Carolina rig with a lizard, things like that. Last few years, we've had various amounts of rain the 1st of March, and there's been some years where it was all the way in the bushes, and then other years where it's like it is right now, it's kind of normal. But we are expecting quite a bit of rain the next 2 weeks. It's possible it could end up being a high water tournament when then current breaks might be a really big deal, and throwing crankbaits on them or spinner baits. It's very possible that could happen. If the water stays clear, then jerk baits, Alabama rigs may be the big player.
Okay. Well, that leads me to my next question. How do you think this year is going to differ from last year's tournament?
Well, last year the water had gone back down, if I remember right, and so I seem like I catch them better on lipless baits when the water's down. And when I'm having to fish the higher water, I'll do a little bit better with spinner baits, maybe even flipping, and throwing a crankbait on, around current, stuff like that, the bridges.
Okay. And, last question before we wrap things up, in terms of you catching them up shallow, you're fishing those secondary points, those bars, is the fish that you're catching this time of year in those areas, are they going to stay relatively close to those areas when they go up to spawn and then they come back out in the post spawn and get on a ledge, or do they really fluctuate and move around a lot?
I think they move. I think they get out there and stay 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, and they kind of move around the secondary stuff and then out on the river stuff. But I think at some point they migrate closer in, and they either get on the bars that are really shallow next to the bank, or they go up into the pockets and spawn.
Okay. So that makes sense. So, well, Ed, you gave us a lot of great information. We really appreciate your time. But before we get off here, we want to give you the opportunity to thank any of the people that support you in your tournament career. Like I said, I looked you up on Major League Fishing. Of course, you were Angler of the Year last year in the LBL division, but you have a phenomenal record as a tournament angler in the state of Kentucky. So that's really awesome to see. But I'm sure that doesn't come without anybody that's supporting you. So anybody, sponsors, family, friends, anybody that supports you, we'd love to give you that opportunity to thank them.
Okay, and actually, I'm in Tennessee.
Oh, you're in Tennessee? Okay.
I fished in Kentucky Lake. I fished the Kentucky part too, but I actually live in Tennessee around Paris. I would like to thank Phoenix Boats, Mercury Motors, and ACS Marine in particular, Denali Rods. And I'd also like to talk about, I'm going to do something a little different this year. I'm going to do a little high school captaining. And I've got a couple of girls I'm going to be captain for, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's going to be something that's going to be a lot of fun.
Good for you. So the high school and college program, it's very, very important. There's a lot of kids out there that are getting involved in that. I believe that's really great to go ahead and start fishing as early as you can. And it just, if you're watching this and you are one of those high school and college anglers, there's a lot of great opportunities out there for you. So take advantage of them. The more time on the water, the better that you can prepare yourself for a long career if that's what you're willing to do. I will add, it is very important to go to college and get that education, especially if you want to relate back to this fishing stuff, because there's a lot of marketing and sales involved in that. And there's just genuine steps that everybody should take, and that's just part of it. So, well, Coach Ed, we really appreciate you being on with us this evening. We wish you the best of luck this year. And, hey, we hope to have you back on this podcast for the Vital Outdoors, because that means you're having another successful campaign in 2022.
All right. I sure do. Thank you. And I've enjoyed being here.
Yeah, thank you. So from all of us at Vital Outdoors, I'm Theron Asbury again. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page if you haven't already, and then check us out on social media. And good luck to Ed this year and all the BFL anglers fishing the LBL division of the Major League Fishing and with the Bass Fishing League. So thank you again for tuning in to another podcast.